it's raining then, son. Point up on the screen.
See if you can point
The triangle. Where's the triangle?
Over there because not the chemtrails over there. There's coming in the morning if there's no chemtrails.
Good man.
Quick, he's going to get off in a minute. Show me where it's raining then, son. Point up on the screen.
See if you can point
The triangle. Where's the triangle?
Over there because not the chemtrails over there. There's coming in the morning if there's no chemtrails.
Good man. He's got his eyes wide open, hasn't he?
Over there because not the chemtrails over there. There's coming in the morning if there's no chemtrails.
Geoengineering that we might get involved with. Us. Any plans for the future? What sort of time scale are we looking at?
So the Met Office is not engaged with geoengineering in any way, shape or form, just so everybody understands what geoengineering is. Can we do something which would take the CO2 out of the atmosphere or cool the atmosphere artificially in some way? So for instance, if you were to seed the oceans with iron and make algae blooms grow, they can actually absorb CO2, and as the algae dies, it sinks to the bottom of the ocean and takes the CO2 with it, and therefore you reduce the CO2. Our climate change work is driven by DEC, so we are definitely being guided by government. There are occasions when we would look at how a volcanic eruption, for example, would impact on climate change, and it would impact on the speed of climate change. So if we have another Krakatoa, that could quite easily cool globe for a number of decades, but once the aerosol had been dispersed from the stratosphere, it would start to increase again. But we, as an organisation, are not doing any work about geoengineering. Our scientists are obviously very interested in it, and we could quite easily do experiments with our numerical models to see what the impact of geoengineering could be. However, there are things that lots of non-linear impact feedback events that geoengineering could produce. We don't know that modifying the surface of the seas might have a dramatic impact on the circulation of the oceans, which would then feed back into the atmosphere at a later date.
We've only got one picture there, but quite often we play a whole sequence of them, and then we can see where the wind is moving to, how fast it's travelling, whether it's getting heavier or lighter, and so on as well. It's a really useful tool. Quite a few things we have to be aware of as users of that data when it can go wrong, or not be quite telling the truth. I think I was looking at the current ones just a few minutes ago, and they're showing two very neat lines of ships in the channel right now, as well as the light. Are
they called NETRADs? The weather, the radar.
Okay.
Like you say, you call them golf balls. I mean, you've got quite a few of them there, about 18 of them around the country.
Yeah, it's about something.
And sometimes you see, like, I know the one in Southern Ireland, it's like a speckling effect. There's one in Belfast or further north, sends beams out and major rings. And what's the difference between the two?
Usually it's effects caused by things that aren't rain. So we see all sorts of weird effects going on with the radar, like I said about the ships before. Often when you get sort of beams, sort of spokes in it, it's caused by things getting in the way. So, you know, hills, buildings will block some of the beam.
The buildings block some of the beams, so those massive beams that come out up the atmosphere. Oh, it's because there's a house in the way. Yeah, right, those beams go in all sorts of directions. That's just a few examples, and the speckles that you see on there, those if you could see the whole picture of that and not just 1 second every 15 minutes, you'd see a massive circle covering the whole of Ireland, as I've recorded these before in Scotland.
It can sometimes be things like flocks of birds or even insects, apparently, things getting in the way. Or it can be
Flocks of birds and insects, yeah, right.
atmospheric conditions where you see speckling. It's often because the atmospheric conditions are just right that the radar beam is actually sort of bent round, like it's happened in a mirage, and rather than looking up at the rain, it's looking down at the ground. So you see speckling, you think, oh, it must be raining, but no, actually it's just seeing.
It's like you get a massive beam going out about 300 miles, and then 45 degrees, another beam
Yeah.
goes
Usually
out.
that's because something's getting in the way of it. And it's,
It's not because something's going in the way. There may be the odd time, but consistently massive beams going out 200 miles just before a storm hits. And once that beam hits that storm, I've put loads of videos on there, you can have a look on my channel and see them, then precipitation takes place every time. Very suspicious. And we have some of the biggest floods, massive precipitation, flood after flood, like North Devon. This doesn't make sense. She's either totally unaware of it, which I doubt it, she's one of the main forecasters at the Met Office, or they're told what they can and can't say.
things that happen all the time we can account for and take out of the processing afterwards, but anything a bit extra, a bit unusual would cause that sort of effect.
Sorry, can I ask another one?
Yeah.
I've noticed loads of transmitter poles around the country as well. Are they used for any means of radar as well? Because they show up as well, all at the same time right up the country. It's like switching lights on. These little speckles, we believe these are the small towers that look like the mobile phones, in fact are even attached to the mobile phone transmitters, pillars, that you see all the towers around the country. It appears from my investigation that these dots actually do match up with the pillars that and the towers that we see around the country. Anyway, just see that pulse there then. I have to take you back to that there. You can see massive activity on the radar speckling there. I mean, that is not normal. And these always appear around the time of a storm or precipitation. You can see around Dover it's happened. There's another storm from Calais down to Dieppe on the north of France there. So continue on. Let's have a look. You saw a beam there coming from the Isle of Wight. The next rad's now kicked in there near the Isle of Wight in the Channel. And you'll see the beam on the right above London there. Precipitation starts there, just where, and it grows right down to the Channel. Wow, and then expands there to maximum precipitation. They all fire up at the same time, I've noticed. They did 24 hours ago, I just sort of noticing that. Do you not, is that
I'm not
technical?
aware of
Yeah.
what they're having to do with us.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they'd be able to change.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
I was on the Met Office homepage recently, and there's a video up there where Jim Hayward from the Met Office there, the Chief Aerosol Manager, Research Manager, he was talking about the possible need to implement geoengineering around the world in the future to combat global warming. He described geoengineering as the large-scale and deliberate intervention in the Earth's climatic system with the purpose of combating climate change or global warming. He describes one category, which is solar radiation management, and he talks about how this would be achieved by stratospheric aerosol injection, spraying sulfates into the atmosphere to mimic a volcano effect, to cool the planet, to reflect the sun back into space. That it's still only a theoretical exercise. However, I have been on the House of Commons homepage Now, the Science and Technology Committee back in 2009 wrote out their 5th report on the regulation of geoengineering, and in that report they actually say that it's in research stages at the moment. It is actually going on around the world, and recently as well, the World Meteorological Organization have published a report which lists 42 countries worldwide that are engaged in full-time weather modification programs. Do you have any idea about this, or what would your opinion on that be?
Only that, as far as I'm aware, we have nothing to do with weather modification.
Okay.
I can't say what will happen in the future.
Okay.
But right now, I don't think we're doing anything.
Yeah, that's right, because she doesn't know what's happening inside the computer.
Like I say, we don't do anything in terms of weather modification. With the chemtrails, it really depends on the conditions in the upper atmosphere, about how long they will persist, how much humidity there is around.
I'm 39 years of age, and I've looked back at old photographs for the last few years since I started looking into weather modification, and for the life of me I cannot see one persistent trail in the sky in any old photographs. Just cannot find it. But now all of a sudden they're just an everyday thing. They're just up there, just a part of every landscape. I see them on the television being added in, the cartoons. It's just a normalisation media program going on to basically normalise these unusual anomalies. And it's
the way we understand it is it's just due to the amount of humidity in the upper atmosphere.
Okay.
And if you have a very humid atmosphere anyway, then any water vapor
Okay.
that's cloud will hang around for longer.
Just one quick question. The NASA cloud chart, the new NASA cloud chart that was released in 2010, with 32 cloud types on it. When I was going to school, there was only like 9, maybe 10 clouds, but now all of a sudden there's 32 different cloud types. It's
the way we see it, there are 10 basic cloud types, but each of them has a number of
subcategories, like.
So it depends how you count it.
Okay.
Really.
Yeah. It's the new NASA cloud chart. We're looking into 32 cloud types. Strange looking clouds, very strange, unnatural looking. Okay.
That's because the Met Office have only just learnt to count up to another 25. But no, nothing to see. Move on, folks. Move on.
You made it out with the merchandise. Harry was searched, and his gear was, your suitcase there was confiscated.
What's in your case? Have you pinched our supercomputer? I said,
Yeah.
joke.
Looks like you got the codes to the nuclear weapons there, man.
I say I've got a better computer than that at home.
Yeah. So what you make of the visit, Harry?
Very interesting. I can't believe why you can't take photos in normal offices and certain areas where there's no issues. What's the top secret?
Yeah. We were very limited to with where we could film in there. We were allowed to film in the main area, but when we went into the offices and the areas of the supercomputer and all that, filming was completely out of bounds. Yeah, so what's all the secret?
Off me, I had to open it. Which you can understand that.
What's all this tight security, but what's all the secrecy? And I mean, over here, there's a sign which says these grounds are subject to the Official Secrets Act. Yeah. Why is the Met Office subject to the Official Secrets Act? No.
Okay, go on. Software on the computer that's very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
You could download that software off that computer.
You were just saying that, Harry, yeah.
Cheers. Geoengineering takes place.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. And we've learned today the computer in these offices here monitor the weather all over the world. It's the _1 weather office for the whole
because we weren't sure of that before we went in. We had our suspicions, but not suspicions. We thought that already before we went in, but it was confirmed in there that it is.
And the NEXRADs. The NEXRADs and the special satellite radios they've got. They monitor per 17 cubic kilometres around the world. Was it about 6 or 7 cubic kilometres around Europe? And it's 1.5 cubic kilometres over the UK.
So they are monitoring every square inch of the atmosphere worldwide.
Yeah.
Okay,
12
that means
trillion
that
connections
means
per second.
it's actually 4,000 trillion computations a second.
Uh-oh.
No, but that actually means.
Right, let's go.
Me, when you were asking your long question, which they'll see on here because it's been recorded, there was a lady sitting right in front of me with a Met Office badge on, and as you were halfway through your question, she tut-tutted. She went over to the guy that was in charge of our tour, tapped him on the shoulder and dragged him out.
Yeah.
And they took it outside the door.
Yeah.
She was upset on the question
Well,
you were asking.
I didn't notice that.
Was
Yeah,
very suspicious, that
Well,
was.
did you see that, Martin?
No, I went
sorry.
up to him after. That's the guy I've just had a word with after.
Okay.
And I said, have we asked the wrong questions, sir?
Yeah.
Is there something we've said? And he went,
Yeah.
What do you mean? I says, well, we've asked questions on geoengineering, and that's why I said I've driven down here for 9 hours to ask
Yeah,
those questions.
yeah.
I'm going to ask him.
Yeah.
And he says, no, of course not, of course not.
Yeah.
I thought, no, absolutely not. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So.